Don't list them on my Etsy or have flat rate prices clearly displayed, as I charge based on complexity and time spent. My target audience there is specifically people who know me personally or have had me recommended to them by someone who does, and the way I connect and market to them is very different than the way that I market every other type of art that I do. My digital art commissions are more easily marketed on my usual social media because my target audience that wants cute anime girls drawn in my style is usually already catered to by that social media, as the communities that I'm in there are already the same communities that are interested in that. But it's worth taking a closer look at what specifically you're selling and what your ideal target audience is based on that, because it could very well be that a significant portion of that audience is using a platform or hashtag that you're not, and you're subsequently missing out on potential customers. For example, if you're selling furry commissions on Twitter and Instagram within the furry communities, you're probably getting some business because that's a significant portion of your target audience that you're promoting yourself to. But further analysis would show that DeviantArt, Fur Affinity, and even Discord are other prominent and promising places where your art would probably be very desirable, and you could be getting business by branching out there. I've seen too many artists establish what their target audience is without doing any of the follow-up work to find where they are and how to appeal to them more directly and consistently, and it's a problem that's very easily remedied. And finally, the last reason you're not getting commissions, number 9, is one of the biggest ones, that you're just not marketing yourself well. Unfortunately, being a freelance independent artist means basically doing 2 full-time jobs for your business, the art and the marketing. This is especially difficult given that these are 2 very different fields requiring very different skill sets, so being good at art has almost no bearing on whether or not you're able to market that art well. That means you basically have to start studying and researching an entirely new field, at least to some extent, in order to maximize how much you can actually get out of an art career, and by extension, how many commissions you can market yourself into getting. And frustratingly, your success does seem to actually be more dependent on your marketing skills than your art skills. You can be a much better artist than someone else, and they can easily end up with a huge platform and more commissions than they have time to accept if they're better at marketing than you. Because as I've mentioned in previous videos, being good at art isn't enough to stand out and set you apart anymore. Social media is taking over the world, and artists everywhere are posting all of their work on it, with the vast majority of them being pretty damn good. That means that audiences and potential clients no longer see good art as being impressive, but rather as being the expected standard for all artists. This means that you have to do something different to stand out and get their attention and establish some kind of personal connection, a topic I'll be covering more in the Art School Part 2 video coming out soon. And it also means that you need to be good enough at marketing to get their attention with the way that you're selling your work. And hey guys, it's Celestia, and every time I ask you guys what you want me to talk about on my channel, there is one topic request that I get more than any other: commissions. And that's not exactly surprising. I mean, commissions are, for many artists, the backbone of their art careers. They're often the first way that artists start making money from their work, and they usually continue to account for a significant portion of their income even as they end up diversifying and branching out in terms of the ways they make money. This means that beginner artists, professional artists that have been working for years, artists with day jobs just taking commissions on the side, pretty much any artist that's even dabbled in selling their work has some experience with commissions. And as a result, most artists are interested in them as a topic. Specifically, most artists are interested in figuring out how to get more of them. I mean, if commissions are your livelihood or even just a portion of your income, you're naturally gonna want to get as many of them as possible, and that's easier said than done. I don't know anyone who hasn't struggled to get commissions at some point, and honestly, most people I know, myself included, still struggle with it regularly. Selling your art online when you're competing with hundreds of thousands of artists also selling their art is anything but easy. And honestly, based on the oversaturation of the art market, I think getting commissions is always going to be something that's difficult, even if you're doing everything right. But doing everything right does make it easier, which is what we're going to be talking about today, because in all likelihood, you're not doing everything right. Today, we're going to go over the top 9 reasons you're not getting commissions and what you can do to change that. But first, let me take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Artistry, because to get commissions, you need a reliable platform to accept them on, and by God, guys, I think we finally have one now. Artistry is a brand new platform that I'm honored to help spread the word about that is specifically designed for artists, and it allows you to do more than just accept payments for your commissions. It's got you for the whole commission process too. This platform, which is completely free for artists to use thanks to a very small fee for your clients, lets you create a custom request form where you can list all of the types of commissions that you accept, which is a feature that lets you have different example images, price ranges, descriptions, caps, and estimated production time times for each one. Once you start getting commissions from that form, Artistry's platform automatically organizes them into the following categories for you: requests, awaiting payment, in progress, awaiting final approval, and closed. So you can actually be an organized human being, which at least for me, never happens. You can also message your customers directly throughout the commission process and formally submit your work in progress updates for approval. And Artistry keeps a record of all of those conversations and approvals so that a client can never say, "I want my money back, I didn't get what I paid for or wanted." You can also directly include your terms of service in the commission invoice, run a waitlist with a maximum number of clients, and send invoices independently from the commission form if you don't want to use Artistry's built-in process. And the best part, they don't take any fees from you. Literally none. You keep 100% of what you charge, and on top of that, they donate to plant a tree for every commission you accept and complete on the platform. They don't just care about artists, they actually care about the planet too, and that's just wild. At least to someone as cynical as me. Let me be completely honest with you guys and say that even if this wasn't a paid sponsorship, I would still be telling you about Artistry right now. I've spent the last month taking all of my commissions on it, and it's made my life so much easier that I'm switching over to it permanently. This platform has made taking commissions actually enjoyable, and I'm genuinely convinced that it is the best, most artist-friendly service that I've seen in a long time. And when I tell you guys that they have not only my endorsement, but my business and my personal support, I mean it. Please check out Artistry via the link in the description and give it a try, because it's already revolutionizing the way that artists sell their work online, and it's more than worth it to see that for yourself. Anyway, aggressively passionate endorsement aside, let's get into the top 9 reasons you're not getting commissions and how to fix them. These are just my opinions based on my professional experience, for the record, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But all of this certainly worked for me, and that's something. How much of a something that is up for debate, but it is something. Number 1 is, unfortunately, the biggest and most common reason, and also one that's pretty much inevitable, and that's that you don't have a very big following on social media. I'm mentioning this one first because I don't want to be deceptive. I don't want to sit on my soapbox and say I'll magically start getting tons of commissions with these simple steps, no following needed. I don't want to be a bad art infomercial, and I don't want to lie to you. For people to commission you, they need to know you exist, and having a social media following is one of the biggest, easiest ways to make them know that. That's why it's so much harder to get commissions without one. And I'm not going to make any claims that it's not, or that any of the tips I'm going to give you in this video will change that this is going to be a hurdle that most, if not all, artists taking commissions will have to deal with. It's not impossible to get commissions with a small social media following, but in my opinion, it's worthwhile to work towards building a larger one if you really want to start getting more, because it also helps make getting them more sustainable. Getting commissions with a small following usually means a lot of seeking them out yourself, but if you manage to build more of a following for yourself, there will be a lot more clients seeking you out instead, which makes getting them more of a reliable thing that you can count on. Obviously, that's easier said than done, and I'm not saying no following, easy fix, just get one, but I am saying it's worthwhile for the sake of your commissions to make a concerted effort to try to grow one, even if progress towards that is slow. It's something that will eventually come on its own as you post art and engage with the community too, so long as you keep at it long enough and take the time to learn and at least kind of cater to the algorithms. So that's something of a reassurance. It also helps to specifically seek out artist-focused communities on whatever platform you're on, because artists tend to be very supportive of each other, and not only will it help you grow a following and connect with your desired community, it'll also probably help you find commissions, because other artists order them too, often even more regularly and passionately than non-artists. In terms of a fix for this problem, as I said, there really isn't one. Starting this list off strong, great. Trying to build a following is a good idea, but beyond that, like I mentioned, it isn't impossible to get commissions anyway. It's just a lot more work. If you're either struggling to grow a following or just not interested in doing so, you can still find clients on social media by posting in commission-based hashtags, and also by monitoring those hashtags and replying to posts in them from people saying that they're looking for an artist to commission. You're also not limited to social media as a method for finding clients either. There are a multitude of other online spaces where artists can apply for work and clients can post listings, like DeviantArt's job offers forum, Reddit, ArtStation, and even some Discord servers. There are also websites like Freelancer, Fiverr, and Upwork, but I'm actually working on a video about why you should never use those, so needless to say, I wouldn't recommend them. I'll go into a lot more detail when I do make that video, but to summarize, there's almost no protection for the artist on those platforms. Clients can take advantage of their lax policies to demand more than they paid for from the artist or get refunds even after the ordered work has been completed, and you're forced to undercharge outrageously for your work because everyone else is, and it's what the clients expect. It's why they go there. And that's not even all of it, but again, that's a topic for another video. For now, just please be cautious when looking into those sites, or just stick to the more reputable options I already mentioned. Alright, the second reason you're not getting commissions is very closely related to that, and it's that you're waiting for clients to come to you without actively seeking them out. I know I said that the primary reason to try to grow a social media following is to avoid needing to do that so much, but having a following following is by no means a full-on substitute for it altogether. In almost all cases, if you want to get more commissions than you're getting now, even if you've got tens of thousands of followers, you'll have to put some effort into connecting with the clients that you want to buy them. The number of times I've heard artists just put commissions open or accepting commissions in their description or handle and then never post about them or advertise them at all and just sit and wait for someone to contact them to buy one is disheartening, because it's not effective. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that it's in my handle, but that's just because it works as a first step. You still have to post at least somewhat regularly about your commissions, seek out freelance art job listings, or even posts online seeking artists to commission, and make sure that you're exploring every avenue through which you could connect with potential customers. Because it's not just that waiting for clients to come to you will not yield a lot of commissions, it's also that it not yielding a lot of commissions will be incredibly discouraging, which is something I see a lot, and I really hate seeing it. If you're expecting to get customers just by waiting for them to find you, it's going to be ridiculously disappointing and disheartening to consistently have that not happen for you. And the more discouraged you get by that, the more disillusioned you'll become with taking commissions in the first place, which might lead you to give up. It's not that your art isn't good enough or that people won't want to commission you. It's that for them to see that your art is good and decide to commission you, you have to make an active and consistent effort to connect with them first. Reason number 3 that you're not getting commissions also closely follows this point, and it's that you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. You're only advertising your commissions on one platform or to a certain group of people, and you're not venturing out to other markets as well. Now, I understand that in some cases, this isn't just because people are failing to advertise their commissions on multiple platforms. It's also because they don't use other platforms at all, and they want to keep it that way. And if someone looked me dead in the eye and told me I'm not touching Twitter with a 10-foot pole even if it got me 10 commissions a month, I would honestly struggle to blame them or suggest otherwise. If your reason for not advertising commissions on a particular form of social media is that you don't like or feel comfortable using that platform, I can't argue with that, and that's obviously your choice. But if you're serious about taking commissions and getting significantly more of them than you are now, I would strongly recommend to at least branch out to as many forms of social media as you're comfortable with. Because while there is a lot of overlap in terms of user base, you will inevitably find different audiences and customers on each, and being able to promote yourself to all of them will almost definitely be better for business. In my experience, if I get 10 commissions in a month, I'll usually get them all from different places. As a rough estimate, I usually get 1 or 2 from word of mouth, those being commissions I get from people I know in real life or people who heard of me from someone I know in real life, a few from Twitter, a few from Instagram, occasionally 1 from Facebook, and the rest from YouTube. And I started out only accepting them on Twitter, which meant only getting 1 or 2 a month back then. Branching out was one of the best things I ever did in terms of commissions, and while it would be a lot more convenient to only accept them from one place just for the sake of organization, it's worth it to connect with more clients instead. That's also something that Artistry can help with, because using your commission request form link, you can keep all of your commissions in one place across all the platforms you initially accepted them on, and you can contact clients from there rather than relying on the DM system of that platform. One of the things I mentioned though brings me to the next reason you're not getting commissions, number 4, that you're not using word of mouth to sell them. Word of mouth is one of the most underestimated, under-discussed methods of marketing out there when it comes to art, and it's because social media has pretty relentlessly overtaken its spotlight. When you can reach hundreds of thousands of potential customers by posting on Twitter, it can seem pretty redundant and pointless to try to advertise your work to much smaller numbers of real people that you know in person. It's also scarier. They're people you know, they're your friends and family, and you're talking to them in person. It can feel a lot more daunting and anxiety-inducing to basically feel like you're pitching your art to them, and it can also feel inappropriate or rude to bring work into a personal relationship. But what I mean isn't that you should go up to your mom or coworker or best friend and start trying to sell them a commission. What I mean is that you should just let those people know that you are accepting them, because number 1, people are more inclined to turn to people they know when they need something done, because there's trust there that they wouldn't have with a stranger, and if they end up having art needs at any point, they'll probably end up looking to you to meet them. And number 2, even more importantly, they'll probably end up recommending you to anyone they know who mentions having art needs. And the more people you have getting your name out there and establishing confidence in you and your work throughout larger communities, the better. I know it sounds like a long shot, but it's really not. Some of my biggest and most regular commissions have come from people who heard about me from my friends and coworkers that knew I was accepting commissions and recommended me as a result. And actually, my first ever big job was because of word of mouth networking. My uncle, who plays poker semi-professionally, commissioned me when I was like 17 or 18 to draw a few of his poker buddies as wizards, because I think people called them poker wizards or something. Honestly, it's been way too long for me to remember it even vaguely clearly, but the point is that I drew these 2 dudes as poker wizards, and it was a pretty cool time. And I never thought anything else would come of that, but as it turned out, one of those poker wizards had a wife who worked in marketing for an investment firm, and she reached out to hire me to design her whole staff as futuristic fantasy characters for marketing purposes. So long story short, drawing 2 poker wizards for my uncle turned into my first ever ever large-scale freelance contract, all because of word of mouth. It is such an unbelievably underestimated tool that artists these days don't utilize nearly enough, and it's so easy too. Literally all you have to do is talk to people about the fact that you do art and are willing to do it for money, and talk about it regularly enough that the people around you know and start recommending you to people. It's no different than any other trade in that way, and getting people talking is honestly invaluable when it comes to getting more commissions. Next, the fifth reason you're not getting commissions. You're making it too hard for clients to either order them or even know that you're accepting them. You have to keep in mind that, again, you're competing with hundreds of thousands of other artists, no matter what platform you're taking commissions on. And that means that many clients aren't going to be willing to put in the extra effort to get a commission from you when any of those other artists makes it easier to do so. What I mean is, like, if someone likes your art, but it doesn't say anywhere in your handle, bio, or immediately available information that you're taking commissions, but they've seen 20 other artists whose art they also like make it clear that they are, it's not super likely that they're going to put in the extra effort to DM you to ask if you're taking commissions when they could avoid that hassle and message one of the other ones that they know are. Even in my experience as a marketing consultant for an organization, when we were hiring artists, if we weren't sure if an artist of interest was accepting commissions or not, we would put them way lower down in the list of terms of people to contact, simply because we didn't have the time to ask them all for that information. I found that in almost all cases, it's best to have commissions open or something similar somewhere obvious and clear, like in your bio, handle, card, or link tree, just to make sure that anyone interested doesn't need to wonder and potentially lose interest in the process. This logic also applies to how you accept them and how you advertise them. Again, it's more organized and streamlined to accept commissions in only one way, be that by email, DM, or even artistry commission request form. But forcing clients to accommodate that might also end up being a deterrent. For example, if you only accept commissions via DM, but the interested customer only uses email, the fact that you're unable or unwilling to accommodate an alternate method for them will likely lose you their business. Whenever possible, it's better for business to make ordering your commissions as accessible as you can to every possible demographic, so that they don't turn to someone else who did make it easier. And that means clearly and straightforwardly advertising exactly how they can order one with as few extra steps needed as possible. How you advertise your prices is another point of contention here. I've heard some artists advise that you not use commission sheets with flat prices or even advertise your prices at all, but to instead charge on a case-by-case basis and force clients to come to you to inquire about your prices, at which point the two of you can negotiate the best possible rate. I can understand why people recommend this, as it's certainly the best case scenario for you as the artist, but in my experience, clients don't like that, and I don't really blame them. It's really awkward and uncomfortable to have to message an artist to discuss commission prices, especially if their prices end up being higher than you can afford, and then you're forced to decline and back out, and it's so uncomfortable for everyone involved. And personally, on the client end, if an artist's prices aren't readily available, I won't commission them, just out of the pure anxiety that comes with having to ask and open myself up to that conversation and potential conflict. And while I obviously don't speak for all or even many potential clients out there, I'm pretty sure there are quite a few people who feel the same, and quite a few more who will avoid commissioning an artist whose prices aren't publicly available simply because the hassle of finding them out isn't worth it if they could just hire another artist whose prices they can see instead. Whether or not you decide to make your prices public is completely up to you and what you find the most valuable and important, but I do think it's worth considering that when it comes to making it too hard for clients to commission you, not having them public and easily accessible is a notable factor. Ease of access also brings me to number 6, the next reason you're not getting commissions, which is that your portfolio doesn't show what it should, and that could mean a multitude of things. The first, relating back to that ease of access that's so important to offer potential customers, is that your portfolio doesn't have enough relevant examples to the types of commissions that you're selling, or that those relevant examples are too hard to find. For example, if you're trying to get furry art commissions and the majority of your portfolio is realistic landscape paintings, you're probably not going to get any commissions because your clients can't see enough examples of the work that they would be interested in getting from you. In that case, I would recommend that you either have multiple portfolios for multiple purposes, or you do what I do and separate your portfolio into the different categories of work that you're offering so that no matter what someone might be looking to commission from you, they're just a click away from seeing the examples of it that they need to make that decision. Just make sure that whatever you choose, you keep it organized, because if the art that you show there is too varied and all over the place without any way for potential customers to organize it, a great deal of them will probably not want to put in the work and sift through it all, or will think that those examples aren't even there at all. The other problem you might have with your portfolio is that you haven't updated it to include enough of your best and newest work, or you haven't removed enough of your older work that no longer reflects your current skill. I've mentioned this before in multiple other videos, but your portfolio is not like your social media. It isn't somewhere you should post all of your art. It's somewhere where you should post your best art. This is the art that's supposed to convince people to commission and hire you, which means it's incredibly important that you specifically select the pieces that you think will do so. And be careful careful not to include any art that you're no longer proud of or no longer feel might impress a potential client. You may still like your older art and want to keep it on your social media, and obviously that's completely fine, but your portfolio isn't the place for it, because clients might be deterred by not knowing for sure what kind of skill level to expect from you. To build a little more on my point of your portfolio having too many varied, different types of work, the seventh reason you might not be getting commissions is that your work itself is too varied. This is one of my more subjective points, and it's one that's really just based in my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, as you may have a completely different experience. But it's something that I used to do and found a lot more success when I stopped doing it, so I thought it was worth mentioning. If you're someone with a multitude of different styles who draws a multitude of different subject matter, advertising commissions for all of them might not be your best bet. Being a jack of all trades and marketing yourself as being able to draw anything a client could want is not necessarily actually all that appealing to clients, because while you might reach a wider range of them, you might impress fewer of them. What I mean is that while the old phrase jack of all trades, master of none isn't always accurate, it does tend to hold relatively true in this case, and being kind of good at a lot of styles and subject matter often means not being exceptional at any of them, and being exceptional at one is going to get you more commissions than being okay at a lot. I know this is particularly tough when you're studying at the same time as you're taking commissions, because branching out and doing multiple styles or subjects is an incredibly important part of studying and growing as an artist, but I would still recommend that you pursue those other styles and subject matter independently from your commissions, at least for the first while, because it's not just your skill that can impact this issue, it's also your client base. If you master one genre or type of art that you enjoy the most and focus on promoting that to customers for commissions, you'll build a consistent and loyal base of clients that are likely to come to you first for all of their commissions within that genre, because it's what you're known for. It's also noteworthy that people who order commissions of certain types usually talk to other people who are interested in similar commissions, and if they start recommending you, you're right back to another form of word of mouth that will likely net you a lot more work than you were getting before. And it's not like you can never branch out past that later on. Once you have established that client base, you can easily start offering new types of commissions based on the other styles and subject matter that you like or have been working on, because now you're selling them to customers who already like your work and feel confident ordering it. And then the cycle kind of begins again with the new style or type, because even if only one or two customers are interested in it, they'll likely recommend you to others who are, and your client base will eventually grow to include and accommodate that. The next reason you're not getting commissions, number 8, is very closely related to that, and it's that you're not connecting with your target audience, or maybe you haven't found it at all in the first place. Prioritizing one particular style or type of art that you're accepting commissions for primarily is the first step towards that, because at least in my experience, trying to sell to everyone rather than doubling down and trying to sell to the people that are most likely to buy them is usually going to end up selling to no one. But that is just the first step. Once you've figured out who your target audience is based on what you're trying to sell them, you have to make sure that you're trying to connect with them in the best possible ways. For example, when I sell my traditional paintings, I don't do so on my Twitter account where people are used to seeing my digital anime art, nor do I do so with the same marketing strategy. I generally sell paintings and take painting commissions on my personal Facebook account where people know that I do them, and I know people are interested in them, and I don't list them on my Etsy or have flat rate prices clearly displayed, as I charge based on complexity and time spent. My target audience there is specifically people who know me personally or have had me recommended to them by someone who does, and the way I connect and market to them is very different than the way that I market every other type of art that I do. My digital art commissions are more easily marketed on my usual social media, because my target audience that wants cute anime girls drawn in my style is usually already catered to by that social media, as the communities that I'm in there are already the same communities that are interested in that. But it's worth taking a closer look at what specifically you're selling and what your ideal target audience is based on that, because it could very well be that a significant portion of that audience is using a platform or hashtag that you're not, and you're subsequently missing out on potential customers. For example, if you're selling furry commissions on Twitter and Instagram within the furry communities, you're probably getting some business, because that's a significant portion of your target audience that you're promoting yourself to. But further analysis would show that DeviantArt, Fur Affinity, and even Discord are other prominent and promising places where your art would probably be very desirable, and you could be getting business by branching out there. I've seen too many artists establish what their target audience is without doing any of the follow-up work to find where they are and how to appeal to them more directly and consistently, and it's a problem that's very easily remedied. And finally, the last reason you're not getting commissions, number 9, is one of the biggest ones, that you're just not marketing yourself well. Unfortunately, being a freelance independent artist means basically doing 2 full-time jobs for your business, the art and the marketing. This is especially difficult given that these are 2 very different fields requiring very different skill sets, so being good at art has almost no bearing on whether or not you're able to market that art well. That means you basically have to start studying and researching an entirely new field, at least to some extent, in order to maximize how much you can actually get out of an art career, and by extension, how many commissions you can market yourself into getting. And frustratingly, your success does seem to actually be more dependent on your marketing skills than your art skills. You can be a much better artist than someone else, and they can easily end up with a huge platform and more commissions than they have time to accept if they're better at marketing than you. Because as I've mentioned in previous videos, being good at art isn't enough to stand out and set you apart anymore. Social media is taking over the world, and artists everywhere are posting all of their work on it, with the vast majority of them being pretty damn good. That means that audiences and potential clients no longer see good art as being impressive, but rather as being the expected standard for all artists. This means that you have to do something different to stand out and get their attention and establish some kind of personal connection, a topic I'll be covering more in the Art School Part 2 video coming out soon. And it also means that you need to be good enough at marketing to get their attention with the way that you're selling your work and not just your work alone. Personally, I had the advantage of working as a marketing consultant for many years and many clients throughout my art career, which helped me learn the ins and outs of what I needed to know for my own work. But before I did have that opportunity and subsequent knowledge and experience, I pretty much got no business online with my art and worked exclusively for clients that had heard of me through word of mouth offline. It wasn't until I did learn the marketing side of things that I really started to see some engagement and commissions coming in. And it's something that I can't recommend looking into enough for anyone with a small business of any kind, especially those based on art. I've linked a series of Skillshare courses in the description if you're interested in learning more, because ultimately you don't really need more than that. You don't have to thoroughly study and work in marketing to learn enough to implement in your business. You just have to learn what applies to you, and that's what makes Skillshare courses on topics like this so valuable. I'm not sponsored, I'm just passionate. Again, I'd encourage you to spend some time looking into marketing for art and small businesses yourselves, but I will go over some of the biggest marketing mistakes that I see artists make in terms of commissions now. First, you're not posting enough, or you're not posting enough commissions, or both. Most people know by now that almost every social media platform's algorithm is tailored to prioritize and promote creators who post often. And while I understand that making enough art to actually meet their standards for frequent posting is unbelievably difficult, I do think it's worth at least trying to post once a week in order to meet their bare minimum, as well as to keep your audience engaged. It can also be helpful to share every part of your drawing process on social media, as that'll give you more content to post. For example, if you wanted to post 4 times in 1 week, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to make 4 completed art pieces. You could just make 1 piece, but post the sketch one day, the line art another, then the flats, and then the final, therefore spreading out your engagement more beneficially without making more work for yourself. On Instagram specifically, I would recommend posting those work in progress shots specifically on your stories and just posting the final as an actual post in order to avoid cluttering your page, but it's up to you. It's also important to post finished commissions whenever possible too, so long as you've confirmed with your clients that they're okay with it, because it's a fantastic way to not only show off your art to potential new customers, but to subtly remind them that you are accepting them and that they could get one just like the one that you posted. I know this only works if you're actually getting commissions semi-regularly, but you can still reshare some of your older ones intermittently if you're not, because so long as you're not resharing the same pieces too often over and over, it'll achieve the same result. Another thing I see a lot of artists do wrong in terms of marketing is advertising themselves too aggressively or desperately. I understand that a lot of artists out there are very discouraged and even upset by not receiving enough or any commissions, and I don't blame them for feeling that way. I've been there, and I sometimes still am there, and there's nothing wrong with feeling like that. But posting, "No one's commissioning me, I'm so depressed," is not only not going to get you clients beyond potentially a few friends that feel bad or care about you, it's probably going to alienate potential customers that now feel like you're trying to guilt trip them into buying from you. It also comes across as incredibly unprofessional, which isn't a vibe that you want to be communicating to people that you want to hire you professionally for obvious reasons. Even if you're not feeling positive about your commission situation, putting on a positive attitude publicly and remaining professional and steadfast is much more beneficial in the long run. You're allowed to be upset, but I would strongly encourage you to share those feelings with friends and family rather than the same social media audience you're trying to get commissions from. Similarly, if you're too aggressive about how you're marketing your work, you might come across as pushy or obnoxious, and you might make both friends and potential clients uncomfortable. It's one thing to let people know that you're accepting commissions, but it's another thing entirely to used car salesman them and try to convince them to order from you even when they either didn't express interest or even explicitly said they weren't interested. This is also something that happens a lot on Twitter in particular, where someone posts, "I'm looking for an artist to commission, drop your info and examples in the replies," and then artists will not only reply to them, but go into their DMs and practically harass them into responding to try to get their business. It happened to me when I was looking to commission a VTuber model, and I had upwards of 10 artists simultaneously saying, "I can do this, hire me. Have you decided yet? Here, I'll give you a discount. Hello? Are you there?" And getting progressively more aggressive, and it's a pretty common problem. I understand that it's important to be tenacious and confident, but not to an extent that you're making all of your potential clients uncomfortable. The opposite of that is also a common problem though. Artists marketing their commissions without confidence. These are the people who will say, "I know my art isn't very good, but my commissions are open, so." Or, "Yeah, my art is pretty bad, so I'll lower my prices if you commission me, and stuff like that. I understand the insecurity. I experience that insecurity still now to this day, but it's once again something that you should be trying to keep to yourself or venting to loved ones privately. Because if you have outwardly zero confidence in your own work, clients aren't going to have any confidence in it either. Or worse, asshole clients will take advantage of the insecurity you expressed and try to get you to lower your prices even more. Capitalism is a nightmare and it turns people into monsters, I swear to God. And if you don't have to open the door to let them be monsters to you, you shouldn't. All of that is to say that it's important to remain both professional and approachable on any platform you're seeking commissions on, which in large part comes down to avoiding those primary pitfalls. You don't have to be using your customer service voice in every tweet or something, but you do have to keep in mind how potential clients might be perceiving you based on what you post if you want their business. This next marketing mistake is one that people might not actually consider a mistake at all, and it's not taking advantage of targeted discounts and sales. Some people say that when it comes to art specifically, you should absolutely never do sales or discount your work, and I understand where they're coming from. It can set a precedent for people haggling with you or expecting discounts, and you obviously want to avoid having customers feel like they can lowball you for a lower price if you can. And if your preference is to avoid sales and discounts as a result of that concern, or even just because you don't feel comfortable charging anything less than full price for your art, that's totally fair, especially given the fact that most artists don't end up charging minimum wage even at full price in the first place. But if you are someone who is comfortable taking a small amount off of your prices for the sake of getting more clients, there are a multitude of ways you can do so in more intuitive ways than people think. I don't mean just saying, I'm giving 25% off commissions this week because I need more. I mean saying, here's a thing I love drawing. I'll give all customers who order commissions of that thing 10% off. Or, hey, a lot of my customers are ordering commissions of their D&D characters. I'll offer a small bulk discount if they want to commission all of the characters in their campaign. Or, it's Halloween, here's a coupon code for spooky themed commissions. Or, if you guys share this post and help me hit 2,500 followers, the first 5 people to order commissions will get 25% off to celebrate. Targeted sales and discounts are basically marketing campaigns tailored to your specific target audience. And if you're okay with taking a small hit in terms of how much you're making per commission, they can be incredibly effective in terms of getting you more of them. If this is something that you plan on doing long term, I would recommend factoring that into your initial commission cost. Like, if you're regularly giving 25% off of your commissions for these marketing campaigns, it would be a good idea to add a 10 to 15% increase on your base cost for commissions to try to recoup some of your losses and make it a more sustainable practice for you. Finally, the last marketing mistake I see artists make when selling commissions is failing to establish a personal connection with potential customers. As I mentioned, competing with so many other artists for business means having to do something more than just be good at art to stand out. And the easiest way to achieve that is by connecting with them personally. Give them a reason to want your work in particular, or to want a commission at all. Compared to selling general merch, commissions actually are already a form of personal connection. Instead of trying to convince a customer to buy something you already made, you're convincing them to buy something custom that they want. So in that way, the connection is already there. And if your potential client already knows they want a commission, you don't really need to build upon it much further than that, because at that point, this marketing requirement is already fulfilled. They know you have the supply and they have the demand. But you also need to consider that you're also marketing your commissions to people that might not have been looking for one in the first place, which is where you have to put in a little extra effort to try to connect with them and show them the value in buying one where they may not have seen it beforehand. The easiest way to do this is give your art a function. Don't just say, amongst other things, I accept headshot commissions. Make specific posts like, are you looking for a new social media icon? Here are my examples and prices. It's literally exactly the same commission, but now that headshot has a potentially more appealing purpose and functional use to customers, whereas before they may not have considered ordering one because they didn't see the point. A lot of the way you market commissions comes down to convincing clients that your art isn't just a luxury they should buy for the sake of liking your art, but it's also something that's filling a need that they already had. Anyway, it's hitting me that I've been rambling for a ridiculous amount of time now, so I'll end this video here. Hopefully you guys found at least some of this to be helpful, and I hope some of these points are things that you'll be able to use to find more commissions yourselves, because I know how demoralizing and disappointing it can be to spend long periods of time not getting the commissions that you want or even need. If you have other tips or mistakes and fixes that I didn't mention here, please leave them in the comments below, because the more valuable information we can compile here for struggling artists, the better. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, Lucian Azapa, and Abyss Reborn, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, This Is Totally My Name, Unity, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Shirome Artiste, Elengshi, Soul Crystal, and Kim Yen for their support, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and today we're going to be talking about a very serious issue facing the art community, which was brought to my attention by a Twitter user by the name of LuckFoxo33. I've been working on this video since they first messaged me, and I appreciate all of your patience this month as I postponed it 3 separate times and put other content on the back burner. I'll be back to my regular upload schedule again after this, but I wanted to make sure that I did as much research as possible given the nature of this topic, and that meant reaching out to multiple sources for interviews and waiting for their responses. I'm still not sure I'm going to be able to do the issue justice in my coverage of it, but I can at least say that I have absolutely done my best to. That in mind, let's just get right into it because there is a lot to get into. For artists that accept commissions, PayPal has been all but a necessity for a long time, as it is the most versatile and widely used online payment system in the world, and subsequently what most artists use to get paid for their work. It's available in most countries, is easily integrated into most e-commerce platforms and even independent websites, and it's a household name that people trust. People know PayPal. Almost everyone has an account. And when it comes to paying for commissions, buyers tend to feel safe and reassured with PayPal as the method, because their buyer protection policies put their minds at ease. For the artists themselves, there have always been issues. PayPal has not made it easy for digital goods to be sold with their service, and many artists faced a number of issues as a result. In the past, digital goods, referred to by PayPal as intangible goods, were not covered by PayPal's seller protection program, which meant that artists selling digital commissions could very easily be scammed by buyers taking advantage of that system and issuing chargebacks because they didn't receive their item. Because PayPal wouldn't protect the seller in this case, the artist would then be forced to have that commission refunded without their permission. As of March 2022, they now have an updated section to kind of fix this problem. They amended the original stipulation that protected goods had to be physical and shippable to now also protect goods that meet the intangible goods additional requirements, which are deliberately vague and effectively come down to you have to prove to PayPal that you delivered what you sold, and even then, it's up to PayPal's discretion as to whether or not they want to deem it eligible and protect your rights on a case-by-case basis, which is hardly reassuring. And if that wasn't dubious enough, moving on to the next section of their seller protection program terms really digs in how shady they are and how little this update actually protects artists. Because under the list of ineligible items and transactions, they include anything PayPal determines in its sole discretion is prohibited by this user agreement or PayPal's acceptable use policy, even if the transaction is initially marked as eligible or partially eligible on the transaction details page. So basically, whether or not PayPal will protect artists from scammers trying to get out of paying for commissions is pretty much as impossible to determine as ever. Some artists have found a workaround by using the friends and family option for payment rather than goods and services, but doing so is technically a violation of PayPal's terms of service if it is actually for business purposes, and a large number of significant friends and family transactions, with that in mind, runs the risk of PayPal finding that suspicious and banning your account immediately, which is a recurring theme with them, but we'll get into that. Others, myself included, have found the use of PayPal invoices to be helpful with this, as it allows you as the seller to have much more control over the transaction and hold your clients to your own terms of service that can protect you better than PayPal's own. But that protection is still quite limited, and it's really just a band-aid on the gaping wound that is PayPal's policies for artists. The point I'm trying to make with this background information, though, is that while PayPal has a long history of screwing artists over whenever possible, most of us have still continued to use it anyway because of the sheer convenience. But as LuckFoxo33 brought to my attention, things have gotten much, much worse. And artists everywhere are no longer facing the question of whether or not they should keep using PayPal despite those problems. They're being told that whether they want to or not, they can't. And they can't have their PayPal balance back either. Thousands of artists around the world are getting the same email. You can't use PayPal anymore. Upon opening that email, they're told that their account has violated their acceptable use policy or has been found to be too high risk, and therefore not only will their PayPal account be banned, but any money in their existing PayPal balance will be held for up to 180 days before they're finally able to get it back. Any attempt to get more information is met with a wall. PayPal's own terms mean they don't have to tell you how you violated their policies, so they absolutely never do. They will never tell you why your account was banned, and in many cases, they don't even know themselves, because all evidence points to a bot being responsible for issuing the bans in the first place. Human reviews can be requested, assuming they even let you escalate the conflict with their support team, but unless you're loud and persistent enough or have a big enough following behind you, the human will uphold the initial ban and still refuse to tell you why. If you are lucky and relentless enough to get your account reinstated as a result of this process, they still won't tell you why you were banned in the first place, and you'll simply receive the vaguest possible email informing you that the ban was lifted. And what happens if you wait the 180 days? Well, for a lot of artists, PayPal simply seizes the money in your balance anyway to allegedly cover the damages for their user agreement violations or the cost of the investigation into their account. That's right, some artists have ended up waiting half a year for money that they need to run their business and live, only to have it stolen by PayPal anyway, with as little explanation as they received for the ban in the first place. LuckFoxo33, after having their account banned and their funds held, decided to do something about it. They made a Twitter thread to not only detail their experience, but also to provide a platform for other artists with similar ones to share them and bring attention to the problem. This thread, as well as their update thread, will be linked in the description for you guys to go check out yourselves. But it went viral, and it received massive amounts of engagement and attention. It revealed in no uncertain terms that they were not the only artists dealing with this. There were thousands out there in the exact same position, helpless and held financially hostage by PayPal's shady business practices and policies. LuckFoxo shared those stories and even illustrated many of them. And while they did finally get their own account and money back, they have not stopped fighting for all of the artists who haven't. They've been compiling an extensive document of all of their experiences, many with plenty of detail and receipts, and have been reaching out to journalists and YouTubers all over Twitter to bring more attention to what's happening. Also starting the hashtag of #StopPayPal. I'll link the Google Doc of detailed PayPal experiences in the description as well, so that anyone interested can read all about what these artists have been dealing with. Foxo has also been working with the Indie Sellers Guild to build a webpage of resources for artists who fall victim to PayPal's wrongful bans, including information on how to get funds back, how to set up alternative payment methods, the do's and don'ts of PayPal use, how to file small claims in court, and more. All of this will be available on indiesellersguild.org, also linked in the description, once it's complete. But now that I've gone over a little more about what is happening, let's look more into why it's happening, because that's naturally going to be a major point of contention if PayPal themselves won't tell us. I did reach out to PayPal for a comment on this, to which PayPal support on Twitter thoughtfully and eloquently replied, "I'm really sorry to know that without reason and having people money held up to 180 days. We can only assist account holders and inform them to reach us with their email address registered to the PayPal account, and we can assist accordingly." So clearly an automated response, or at least I hope it was, because Jesus. I asked again to speak to a real person and request an interview, and was put in contact with their press team via email. And after all of that, the only response they were willing to give me was as follows. "Thank you for reaching out to us. While we cannot provide specific customer account information per company policy, we review each account closely and on an individual basis, based on our long-standing acceptable use policy. Holds or other actions applied to PayPal accounts may be based on the management of risk. When this occurs, we look into the matter and take whatever action is deemed appropriate. Our dedicated customer service team is always available to help customers with their questions." And that was it. They declined the interview and refused to answer further, which they've done with every news source and member of the media that has requested a comment, including Bloomberg. And there's already so much wrong with the brief and evasive reply that they did bother to write. Like, your dedicated customer service team is always available to help? Sorry, is this the dedicated customer service team that has, without fail, immediately responded to every artist in this position with, "Sorry, we're not obligated to tell you anything, we can't and won't help you"? The same team that will only allow them to speak to supervisors if they spend days, weeks, or even months begging them to? The same team that regularly ignores those artists in hopes that they'll just go away? If that's the kind of dedicated help you're so proud to offer your clients, you can keep it. And then there's the bold-ass claim that they closely examine every single ban themselves with care and on an individual basis. LuckFoxo was told outright that they were banned wrongfully by an AI, and they are far from the only one. You're telling me you thoroughly investigate every ban yourselves while thousands of artists are being banned by bots, and the hundreds who actually get their accounts back are being told they were simply banned by mistake? This coming from the same company that when Duduri Art asked them to check how they violated PayPal's terms, they told them, I would have to go through every single transaction, so no. You know what? Okay, I'm not surprised. It's the same company that also told Duduri Art, we at PayPal don't make mistakes. If you got banned, then you clearly did something wrong. While in the same breath was probably sending out hundreds of emails reinstating accounts that their bots banned by mistake. All of that is, effectively, to say that the best explanation that I got from PayPal was the same crock of shit they've been serving to everyone who asks them why this is happening. So instead of relying on them, I looked into it myself, and what I learned can be broken down into two very different categories: why PayPal is banning these artists, and why PayPal is holding their funds for 180 days. You would think that those would be the same, but they're not. So let's start with the first one. By now, we've effectively established that actual human PayPal staff are not responsible for these bans, but rather their AI. Obviously, the larger problem here is that whether or not an artist's livelihood and financial stability is at risk should not be in the hands of an AI to begin with, and at most, it should be used to flag their account for human review. But if we can't stop them from allowing that unbelievable carelessness, we can at least examine the AI that they're using a little more closely. We naturally can't look at that algorithm ourselves, especially since PayPal only admits to using it like 10% of the time, but we can certainly look more closely at the things that many banned accounts have in common to establish some form of educated guess at the criteria that the algorithm considers. Firstly, the one thing PayPal will tell people when they ask why they were banned is that their account was too high risk. What they mean by that is that either based on the size or frequency of your transactions, PayPal is concerned about the consequence of potential chargebacks. A chargeback is when a buyer, after the transaction is completed and finalized, requests their money back. If the chargeback is successful for the buyer, the seller will have to refund the original purchase. And if the seller has funds in their PayPal balance, this will happen automatically. But PayPal's concern lies with the risk of it happening to a seller who doesn't have funds in their balance, because in that case, it's up to PayPal to cover that cost. The seller will obviously owe them that money and be expected to pay it, but depending on their circumstances and the legitimacy of their account information, they might be able to get away with effectively abandoning the account and never paying. So if the seller has a high number of transactions or a history of very large transactions, PayPal will consider that account to be high risk because of how much they would have to cover out of pocket if the seller got a lot of chargebacks and decided to bail on their account. This is especially problematic on their end because they allow chargebacks for up to 120 days after the transaction's completion, which gives the seller plenty of time to transfer their balance to their bank account and call it quits before their buyers realize they didn't get what they paid for and file their chargebacks. It's a legitimate problem that PayPal is well within their rights to be concerned about, especially considering how many users they actually have and the prevalence of scamming online. But even so, banning any account that an AI decided could fit the criteria of being high risk is not a solution. That in mind, we can safely assume that the AI is looking primarily for activity that reflects this potential high-risk behavior. And based on both research and the comparison of banned accounts, I and others have found that the PayPal bots tend to ban accounts that have recently received more or larger transactions than their previous average, have received one or more chargebacks, or have received complaints from buyers. What this means is that as far as PayPal is concerned, if an artist's business starts taking off and they start getting more commissions or raise their commission prices, their bot is essentially liable to consider them a security risk and ban them on site. Already that's unacceptable, but that's just the criteria based on risk level. That's not all there is. PayPal's bots will also ban you based on the nature of your content. Now, most artists know that the sale of not safe for work art or commissions is banned not only on PayPal, but on most payment processing platforms. That's not new information, and it's also industry standard. But PayPal takes it one step further, because they won't just ban you for using their service to sell not safe for work content. They'll ban you if you make not safe for work content on the same website where you've integrated PayPal in any possible way, even if it's not what you're selling. Recently, they updated their user agreement to include the following, effective September 19th, 2022. If you integrate or reference PayPal services on your website, we are clarifying that PayPal may use automated technologies to assess your website to ensure compliance with the user agreement and to combat fraud. So what does this mean? It means if you so much as reference PayPal on the same website where you also have your not safe for work art posted, they can ban you. And not only that, they're openly using bots to make that assessment, which means we could easily be back in the Tumblr era of automated art policing, where a bot will decide that any image with a skin tone is explicit, no matter what's in it. But instead of having a post hidden and immediately approved by a human when appealed with no further consequence, artists now have to worry about having their entire PayPal account banned and their funds held, even if their site doesn't actually contain any not safe for work at all. Those are the most significant reasons that PayPal appears to be arbitrarily and wrongfully banning artists, but I'm sure there are many more false red flags that their bots are using to justify these horrendous actions that we just don't and can't know. Rather than dwelling on the fact that we're going to be indefinitely in the dark about it, let's move on to the next part: why PayPal is holding their funds for so long, or sometimes permanently seizing them altogether. Like I said, you would think that the reasons that these funds are held would be the same as the reasons for the bans in the first place, and on the surface, they seem to be. PayPal claims that this hold is to prevent loss on their end in the event of chargebacks, reinforcing their prior assertions that risk prevention is their primary concern. Although, as a side point, it's interesting to note that buyers can only issue chargebacks for up to 120 days after a transaction, and PayPal is holding funds for 180 days, over a full month longer than necessary. But regardless, while that's consistently their default explanation given to everyone, they refuse to give any further information as to why the funds are being held in cases where the accounts were not banned for being wrongfully deemed high risk, but were rather banned for alleged acceptable use policy violations. And when artists press further to try to get that information, PayPal claims they have no obligation to tell anyone why their funds are being held, and have gone so far as to tell account holders that if they want any basic information about their money or their account at all, they have to get a subpoena. But upon further investigation, it turns out there's a much more likely reason that PayPal is so adamant about keeping this money for such a ridiculously long time. They're using it. As it turns out, the money held in your PayPal balance isn't actually just sitting there. PayPal is actively investing it in stocks and bonds, so that by the time you do take it out or spend it, they've already used your money to make a profit of their own. This practice is explicitly stated and defended by their user agreement, which says the following: PayPal combines your PayPal balance with the PayPal balances of other PayPal customers and invests those funds into liquid investments in accordance with state money transmitter laws. PayPal owns the interest or other earnings on those investments. So with that context in mind, there's suddenly much less mystery surrounding why they want to keep this money for as long as possible. Normally, PayPal users can use their balances at their discretion with no holds or restrictions, which would presumably make this practice of theirs a little less efficient. But if they can look at an account with a large balance and say they can't touch this for half a year, with their policies thoroughly backing them up, they're gonna do it, because that is, as far as they're concerned, a lucrative business endeavor. For example, if they put $10,000 into a GIC, or Guaranteed Investment Certificate, which is the lowest possible risk investment, for 6 months, they would make anywhere from $100 to $200 just by letting that money sit there. And I'm confident that they're investing in riskier avenues, so the yield would, in all likelihood, be much higher. It benefits them in every possible way to keep your money for as long as possible, and that's assuming you ever get it back. Now let's talk about how they feel justified in defending taking it all for themselves even after the 180-day hold. In this section, there's very little to talk about for now. The permanent seizure of frozen funds is something I'll be discussing in more detail later on based on the interview I conducted. But for now, all I'll say is that PayPal's primary defense when it comes to explaining why they've stolen all of the funds that were frozen is that they're collecting damages. In many, many cases, people have reported that after waiting the 180 days to get their money back, PayPal simply told them that since they violated the acceptable use policy, the money was seized from their account, and I quote, "for its liquidated damages arising from those acceptable use policy violations pursuant to the user agreement." Basically, PayPal is putting a redundant and seemingly indiscriminate dollar value on the so-called damages resulting from an AUP violation that most of the time didn't even take place, and is collecting it without anyone having the power to stop them. In the case of one artist, who I won't name because she specifically said she didn't want to be contacted by media regarding this as a result of an anxiety disorder, she waited 178 days for her money, and after barely having been able to make ends meet for 6 months, she was finally able to access her account balance, which was zero. The transaction that had wiped the balance was from PayPal and was simply labeled adjustment. And when she contacted support to get more information, she was told that all banned accounts could be held liable for $1,500 in damages per violation, while still being told that they couldn't, or wouldn't really, even tell her what that violation even was. She was then told to be happy that they weren't suing her for more, because her balance was $778, which did not meet the maximum that they could apparently seize. As she says at the end of her segment, that $778 may have only been half of their maddeningly vague damages, but it was most of a month's income for me. And the inability to use the platform with a monopoly on quick and easy international money transfers has had a lasting effect on my business. But we're 7 pages into this script and many weeks into my research for it, and I'm still not able to use any of what I've learned to offer any solutions. As it stands, PayPal is seemingly within their user-agreed terms to keep abusing artists like this. And while I can tell you how to try to keep yourself safe on their platform and try to take action against them, that seems to be all I can currently do. But before I do get into keeping yourself safe while using PayPal, there is one more thing I want to bring to your attention, and it's the lawsuit. Unfortunately for PayPal, they happened to screw over enough high-profile account holders to be hit with a lawsuit as a result. Not their first one either, although the earlier instance I'm personally aware of that took place in Canada was due to hidden conversion fees, and that was settled. Still, a history of legal controversy is not something that sparks confidence in their platform, and the class action suit currently spearheaded by Lena Evans is further evidence of that. The plaintiffs involved here, just like the artists mentioned thus far, had their accounts inexplicably banned and their funds held, but in their cases, these weren't small businesses, they were big. Now, to be clear, I strongly believe that small businesses should have the same rights as they do, but in terms of social status and ability to reach media, they don't. Which is why the thousands of artists aren't being heard despite dealing with similar issues. Regardless, because these plaintiffs are larger, their losses are too. As it turns out, the amount the PayPal claims it can legally seize from an account is not limited to $1,500, which for anyone that's as poor as I am is already a huge amount. One person had roughly $27,000 taken from her account without reason. One had $42,000 taken from her account for dubious and vague reasons, and one had $172,000 taken from his account with absolutely no explanation. As a result of this, they've partnered with the Ben Samokin law firm in Beverly Hills, California, and they're not letting PayPal get away with it. They're fighting them with everything they've got, and they're not fighting just for themselves. Anyone who has experienced a similar issue is encouraged to submit their experience via the intake form on their website, linked in the description, and this firm will fight for their rights to get their money back. So for any artist listening to this that has fallen victim to PayPal's awful actions, go check them out. You might have someone fighting for your rights after all, no matter how large and insurmountable your enemy here might seem to be. Anyway, I was left with a lot of questions after my initial research into this topic, largely about legal technicalities that I had no way of verifying one way or the other. So instead of just ignoring them and moving on with the video, I instead decided to contact the Ben Simochin law firm themselves, who were very receptive and helpful, to the point that, like, if you guys have legal questions about what's going on with this, I would strongly recommend that you just ask them about it, because they care enough to answer, at least in my experience, which is not something I experienced with any other intended interviewee. Do be aware that they are very busy though, and please be patient with them in terms of time frame. I emailed and messaged them relentlessly, like the annoying journalist in Outlast, and they were kind enough to forward my questions to their head attorney, who will be voiced by me and also responded to by me since I don't have friends. I said, PayPal claims that they're completely within their rights to suspend/limit/ban accounts without disclosing the reason why, and that by agreeing to their policies by using their service, you're accepting the risk of your account being banned and your money being held for up to 180 days. Are they actually legally allowed to do this? They replied, the issue is not if they are allowed to do this, but rather how they go about it. Liquidated damages clauses are not illegal per se. However, they have to be in direct relationship with the loss that the other party may suffer. A random amount of $2,500 per violation does not seem to coincide with any actual damages or loss for their alleged costs to investigate. We have seen amounts in excess of $170,000 confiscated without PayPal so much as providing a report of the alleged violations and wrongdoing. I asked, is disputing their policy the basis of your suit, or are you claiming damages on behalf of those affected? They replied, the basis for the suit was that PayPal is engaging in widespread conversion of people's hard-earned money with impunity. They simply cannot be allowed to continue to do this. I asked, do they actually have the legal right to be doing what they're doing solely because their user agreement defends it? They answered, that is a question left up to interpretation. Again, a liquidated damages clause is not illegal per se, but how it is enforced is a different story. I asked, many have claimed that not only were their accounts banned and their funds held, the remaining balances were actually seized by PayPal after the 180 days. Have you personally received any similar testimonies, and how does PayPal defend it? They said, yes, literally thousands of people all around the world have reached out to the firm with similar stories. I asked, some suggest sending a GDPR to PayPal when this happens, claiming that it forces them to return their funds and close their account within 30 days. Is this correct? They replied, I am not certain that this is correct. I asked, is the goal of your lawsuit to seek financial compensation for those affected, to seek a revision to PayPal's policies and subsequently stop this from happening, or both? They answered, the goal is to get all people all of their illegally taken money back, and to get PayPal to change their policy going forward. I said, do you have any information on the timeline of the lawsuit, i.e. a rough estimate of how long it will take to reach a resolution? They said, PayPalClassAction.net is the official site with updates as to the status of the case. So, while their answers didn't end up actually answering all of my questions, largely because many of them were and still are questions without clear answers, they certainly provided much more information and insight than I had before, particularly surrounding the legal basis of their claim. Since PayPal's terms of service do seem so airtight, I had begun my research into this suit with a lot of confusion. If they do have the right to freeze these accounts based on their acceptable use policy, then how can they realistically be sued for any damages? What law are they actually breaking? This firm definitely cleared that primary concern up for me. It's not their policy that's the problem, at least legally. That's not what's breaking any kind of law. It's the way they're enforcing it, particularly the way they're using the nebulous and undefined umbrella term of damages to seize funds unlawfully. They're claiming that these amounts are owed to them based on user agreement violations, but if the amounts don't actually correspond to anything tangible monetarily, they don't have any legal right to be doing what they're doing. It was also reassuring to learn that the priority here isn't just to get people's money back, but also to persuade PayPal by any means necessary to change their policies and prevent further damage in the future. If you'd like more information on the lawsuit, I would encourage you to check out their site and follow them on social media, all linked in the description. I'm personally going to be keeping a very close eye on it to watch for updates and see how things turn out, because it feels like this might actually be a real chance to see PayPal face some genuine consequences. And after seeing what so many artists have gone through, that's something I very aggressively want to see. But even with all of that in mind, we as artists are still, for the most part, at PayPal's mercy until any kind of proper resolution is reached. So if we have to put up with their ridiculous policies and abuse of power, at least for the time being, the best we can do for now is keep ourselves informed and as safe as possible, and keep fighting for our rights. How do we do that? Well, I have some suggestions of my own that I'll get into now, but I'd first like to remind you guys once again to keep an eye out for the information page coming up soon on the Indie Sellers Guild site, because their information will likely be much more thorough as soon as it's ready. Anyway, for now, let's start with how to do everything you can to avoid being banned by PayPal under these circumstances. One thing I will mention right off the bat is that the vast majority of PayPal accounts that are banned are business accounts. To my understanding, personal PayPal accounts are either exempt from this risk or at least under much less scrutiny, potentially because a different bot is scanning them. So if you're choosing between the two for your own commissions or online store, I would at least consider that particular distinction when doing so, because going with personal rather than business might be the safer bet here. There are downsides to that, of course. You can't send invoices with a personal account, and your full legal name will be shown with every transaction, which is less than ideal for dealing with clients that are strangers on the internet, especially if you don't use your real name in association with your art and you don't want people knowing it. I would recommend looking into the pros and cons yourself to decide which option suits you better, but at least in this context, it seems like a pro to personal is that it is safer. Conversely, others advise that if you already have a business account or require one for one reason or another, try to have all of your transactions completed via invoice, not direct transfers. I have heard some people say that this prevents customers from issuing chargebacks, but that is unfortunately not true. Others, though, say that it does prevent customers from flagging your account with their feedback when they do so, which would reduce the risk of bans. I can't verify that myself, so take it with a grain of salt. But even if that's also untrue, as I mentioned before, it still allows you to add your own terms of service and have more control over the transaction. This is particularly relevant when it comes to intangible item eligibility for seller protection. What I mean is that, as I discussed earlier, digital goods can technically be protected by PayPal under their seller protection program if the seller can provide proof of delivery of the item in question. By using invoices, you can specify the method of delivery, particularly by email, for example, and ensure that the item's description is clearly intangible, so that you're as protected as possible if the buyer claims to have not received their physical item, and it'll be easier for you to prove that the goods were sent and received. All of this means that not only will you be vaguely safer if a client tries to scam you, that scamming attempt will be more easily proven to PayPal, which would subsequently lessen the risk of your account being flagged as high risk and potentially banned. Next, since PayPal appears to be banning artists based on them either having a higher number of transactions or larger transactions than normal, it could be beneficial to try to split your earnings. What I mean is that if you're accepting a lot of commissions, wherever possible, try to accept payments through alternatives instead of PayPal. Use Stripe, Square, eTransfer, etc., so that even if you are still using PayPal for clients who don't or can't use those alternatives, you're still much less likely to be setting off their bots' alarm bells this way. Another tip is to avoid having any not safe for work art or even suggestive art posted on any website that you have your PayPal account integrated or even referenced on. Not safe for work content cannot be sold via any major payment processor, so if that's what you're actually using PayPal to sell, I can't help you there. You're running the risk of having your account rightfully banned, and I would strongly encourage you to instead research other payment methods. But if you're only selling safe for work art, and just happen to also have not safe for work art on the same site you're selling it on, PayPal is apparently still well within their rights to ban you, so please be as cognizant of that as humanly possible. Avoiding chargebacks and refunds wherever possible is also very important, although given how difficult that is for anyone to control, it's not particularly helpful advice. Finally, what's perhaps the most important advice that I can give you is to keep your PayPal balance empty at all times, whenever you possibly can. Because worst case scenario, if you do get wrongfully banned, maintaining an empty balance means that all you'll lose is your account, not all of the money that you received using it. Before researching this video, I kept a significant amount of my funds in my balance at all times, just to have it separate from my personal funds and ready to be spent on business expenses. But the decision to sacrifice that convenience was an easy one when faced with the alternative of potentially losing it all at the discretion of a bot and the negligence and corruption of a corporation. But none of that can help you if you've already been banned and had your money frozen, so let's get into the next section, how to fight it. Unfortunately, if you've already fallen victim to this ridiculously abhorrent power abuse, there's not much you can do but keep contacting them. Don't let them shut you down or talk over you. Keep messaging them and emailing them and calling them, and don't let yourself be ignored or dismissed. Push to speak to a supervisor whenever possible. The artists that I've seen find the most success getting their accounts restored are the ones who fought back so hard and so relentlessly that management had no choice but to look into the issue themselves just to get them to shut up. It doesn't always work, but it can't hurt. I would also encourage you to reach out to both the Ben Simokin Law Firm and LuckFox033, as the former may be able to help you get your money back, and the latter will help you share your experience and connect you with resources that could help you. Again, the information for both are in the description. Finally, you could also try sending PayPal a GDPR request. A GDPR request, or a General Data Protection Regulation request, is a relatively complicated thing in and of itself, and I'll include a basic explanation of it in the description, because I'll only actually be discussing it in terms of how it affects this particular issue, which is the tip of the iceberg, really. As the article I'll link puts it, GDPR requirements give consumers, or data subjects, the right to ask companies for information held about them. Within a month's time, companies must be able to fulfill the request. Data subject access requests force organizations to know where collected data is at all times, what information is being collected, how it's being used, by whom, and when it's being accessed. If the consumer finds an error, the organization must correct it. If the consumer opts to invoke their right to be forgotten, the company must erase their data. If the consumer doesn't like the way their personal data is being collected and used, they can object. Basically, all of that is to say that when PayPal bans an account and says that any bank or credit card information linked to your PayPal account cannot be removed, nor can it be used to create a new account, that is not actually true. And technically speaking, you as the account owner do possess the right to tell them to remove all of that information, close your account, and subsequently return your money within 30 days. It also means that, again, technically, they have to tell you what information prompted your account to be banned. I have read accounts from people who have said that this did not work for them, and as you might recall, the Ben Simokin firm's representative also said that they cannot confirm whether or not it would work. So I can't tell you for certain that it's in any way a surefire method, but it's still worth a shot, especially alongside the fight you put up against them through other correspondence. PayPal clearly doesn't care about making things right for you, but it does care about shutting you up if you're making enough noise. And even if a GDPR request isn't a confirmed method that works on its own, it is a way to make yourself even louder. In conclusion, PayPal is not a safe platform for people to use, much less artists, who have been historically even more victimized by their shitty business practices than other groups. The more I learn about what they do behind closed doors, the more disgusted I am by it, and the farther I want to stay away from the platform myself. But that's so hard to do given the undeniable monopoly that they have over payment processing, and it's not like you can make money from art without processing payments. Personally, I'm going to be doing as much of my business as possible with alternative services from now on, and using PayPal as nothing more than a backup, and I would strongly encourage you guys to do the same. Whether you're like me and just want to avoid both supporting them and risking their wrath, or you've been banned and you have to, here are some alternative platforms to consider looking into. Square, Stripe, Venmo, Cash App, Patreon, Ko-fi, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Facebook Pay, Skrill, Zelle, Western Union, Wise, Revolut, Commish.io, Payoneer, Subscribestar, and Etsy. I'm sure there are more than just those, and I'm also sure that those themselves have their share of issues. Most of them aren't even available in Canada, where I live, so I can't try them out. But it is worth researching each of them individually, because everyone has different financial needs, and what I look for in a payment processor is going to be completely different than what you do. So me sitting here and telling you which ones I prefer and use isn't going to be anywhere near as useful as you looking into it yourself. The point here is that while PayPal is the biggest and most versatile, internationally used option, they are not the only option. And no matter your circumstances, I'm confident that you could find another one instead. Regardless of what you choose to do with your money from here on out, what's most important is that we keep talking about this, that we keep standing up for the artists being taken advantage of and silenced by this corporation, that we keep making noise and we keep pushing for better. Because this shit is not okay, and I for one have no intention of tolerating it quietly. Follow the lawsuit, share the stories of people like LuckFox033 and the people whose voices they're boosting, use the Stop PayPal hashtag, and just keep fighting. Thank you for watching, thank you to everyone who helped me get as much information for this video as possible, and I hope you all enjoyed it, or at least learned something about what's going on behind PayPal's adamantly closed doors. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, Abyss Reborn, Dolph, and Appa is Lucian, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, This Is Totally My Name, Unity, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, and Jason Oliphant for their support. And I'll see you all in my next one. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and today we're going to be talking about commissions. But before we do, I have a bunch of contest updates to share with you, so I'm going to ramble about that for a few minutes first. If that doesn't interest you, feel free to skip to the timestamp on screen to get straight to the video topic, although I would encourage you not to if you're a fan of free stuff and cool art. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone who participated in April's monthly art contest. Given that it was my first one and I've never hosted a contest before, I was a little worried that no one would submit anything, but as it turns out, you guys are the best and I shouldn't have worried. I was honestly overwhelmed to see how incredible the art everyone submitted was, like damn! I'm glad I decided to go with voting as the method of picking a winner because I sure as hell wouldn't have been able to pick one on my own. And based on those votes, the first place winner of April's spring-themed art contest is Munchbud Inc. with this gorgeous art deco piece, and the second place winner is Amelia with this breathtaking and colorful submission. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you so much for submitting your beautiful work. Their social media is all linked on screen and in the description, so go check out their other work as well. Thank you so much to everyone who participated. It was so exciting to refresh the contest page and see more and more fantastic art pop up. And I'll show the rest of the entries on screen here so that you can all see them too, because once again, damn. Anyway, now that it's May, it's time for the next one, and May's art contest theme will be night. As for prizes, Gowamon has provided their M1220 drawing tablet as a first place prize. And because I'm not big on endorsing or offering products I haven't used, I naturally gave it a try first. And after doing so, I gotta say, I'm actually pretty sad that I have to give it away. It works perfectly and is exceptionally easy to set up and use. But what I was particularly impressed by, and am now going to very much miss, is the tablet's versatility. It has 8 express keys that you can program to suit your needs, and if you know me and my use of tablets, you know that the first 2 were instantly programmed to undo and redo, and then used in rapid succession for hours on end. But what's more impressive and exciting is that this glorious-ass tablet has multimedia keys. That's right, the tablet itself lets you skip songs, adjust your computer's volume, switch programs, take a screenshot, and more directly by using those buttons. The amount of time I saved by not having to manually switch tabs to change my music or alternate between my browser and Paint Tool SI and struggle with my laptop's weird-ass volume buttons is surprisingly high. And I know, because I kept a tally of the times I did all those things. It's so convenient. And don't even get me started on the fact that taking screenshots that easily is a godsend for references. And the convenience doesn't end there, because even the pen is more convenient than other tablet pens I've used. You can switch between the pen tool and the eraser tool with the button on the pen, which is unbelievably handy, and yet another feature that saves a ridiculous amount of time in ridiculously tiny increments. And the cherry on top of this beautiful tablet sundae is that it connects to most Android devices, which is the cruelest irony to me, because like 5 years ago, I bought an Android tablet that I wanted to draw on, but gave up on using it for that because I could neither find nor afford a stylus compatible with it and was just using my finger. Now, with the M1220, I can use that tablet for art, only after 5 years and the purchase of an iPad, because I can connect them. And the M1220 is lightweight as hell, so it's easy to bring around with me to use wherever I go. It's amazing. It's amazing enough that going back to the vastly less convenient world of other tablets without these features is gonna be a legitimate struggle for me. I got attached, I named it Gerald, but at least one of you guys will be giving it a great new home by entering May's contest, so I can take solace in that. Please submit your entries based on the theme of night at duchesscelestiacontests.card.com, linked in the description, so that one of you can love Gerald like I do. The winner, its new parent, will once again be decided by public vote on that same site, and will be announced in the first video of June. Big thank you to Gowamon for giving me the opportunity to both try out the M1220 and then give one of you that same opportunity, because honestly, it's a damn good tablet. Alright, thank you for your patience, unless you skip to this timestamp, in which case I will remember this betrayal. So, commissions. You're doing them wrong. At least that's what everyone says, because everyone has an opinion on this, and everyone's opinion is the right one. You don't even have to be an artist to have an opinion on this, because random strangers with no art experience at all will not hesitate to tell you that you're charging too much or too little for them, just as often as other artists will. The topic of commissions, and subsequently what people charge for them, is weirdly polarizing, both within the art community and out of it. So naturally, I'm gonna talk about it. More specifically, I'll be going over the 2 most common perspectives on commission pricing, my perspective on commission pricing, and then some general advice for taking commissions altogether, which will ideally be applicable to beginners, experts, and everyone in between. Or completely useless and irrelevant. Hard to say, we'll find out. So let's start with the controversy surrounding commission pricing, which largely boils down to 2 main opposing opinions on it and why people have them. Both sides have a lot of good points, and both are, for the most part, acting in good faith and just wanting the best for themselves and other artists. It's just the aggression and refusal to acknowledge the validity of the other side's points that causes problems, because it polarizes the art community by making commissions into an unnecessarily problematic and dividing issue. Anyway, the first group of people criticizes artists who charge too little for their commissions, usually for two primary reasons: because it devalues the artist's work and doesn't allow them to make a living wage, and because it negatively impacts other artists who are trying to charge higher rates for their work by making it harder to compete with low-balling undercharging rate. People on this side of the commission debate argue that if tons of artists everywhere price their commissions too low, it doesn't just hurt those artists, it also hurts artists who are trying to charge fairly for their own work. And quite frankly, that's true. If 5 artists are offering the same kinds of commissions with the same quality, and 4 of them are charging half of what they quote-unquote should be, then even if the 5th artist is charging a reasonable amount that all 5 could realistically be charging, that 5th artist's prices, despite being fair, are gonna be seen as ridiculous, expensive, and not worth it by comparison. Charging $25 for a piece that's worth $100 doesn't just mean you're losing $75. It means you're teaching the art market of consumers that that piece and all pieces like it are only worth $25. And that hurts everyone trying to charge $100. That's a completely valid thing to be upset and concerned about, as is the fact that this pattern of undercharging can be damaging to an artist's self-esteem and motivation, and frequently leads them to burning out or working themselves to death. But that's only one side, and the other one is, frustratingly, just as valid, so let's get into that next. The other main group of people believes that while they would like to charge a livable, reasonable wage for their work, it's unlikely that without a substantial enough following, they'll actually be able to get any commissions if they do. Most of them acknowledge that undercharging does negatively impact the art market and lead to consumers being less willing to pay for art. But for small artists struggling to get any commissions at any price, they don't always have the luxury of being able to care about that. And I don't mean they're being deliberately selfish or careless by intentionally undercharging for their work while knowing that. I mean that without a significant following or a great deal of experience, undercharging is often the only real way to compete with other artists in such an oversaturated market. And I don't think it's at all unfair for artists without big platforms to choose getting some commissions at very low rates over charging reasonably and getting none. It adds insult to injury when so many of the artists saying, "Charge more for your work, asshole," have thousands of followers and a solid foundation of regular clients, because sure, they're in a position to do that. The artists they're calling out for not charging enough might not be. So what's the right answer? Well, you all know me at this point, and you all know I rarely have any right answers, just aggressive opinions that no one asked for, which is once again all I can offer you. And in this case, my opinion is that both sides are right in their views and both sides are wrong for thinking there's only one right way to price commissions. To me, the bottom line here is that whether you're of the belief that artists should charge minimum wage for commissions or the belief that artists are being reasonable by undercharging to compete with market saturation, you're valid either way with those beliefs, and the reasons and motivations behind them are more than fair. The problem doesn't lie with either side's arguments. The problem, in my eyes, begins when either side starts telling the other that they're pricing their commissions wrong based on those beliefs. Every artist has the right to charge what they personally prefer and feel comfortable with based on whatever they prioritize. And just because it's not what you would charge doesn't mean that you get to tell them they're objectively wrong, much less call them out for it. I recognize when it comes to undercharging having a negative impact on the art market, it's understandable that some people might blame the artists that undercharge for that impact. But I don't think it's fair to blame small artists just trying to make a living any way they can for the oversaturation in the market or the devaluation of art, just because they're inadvertently worsening the problem. Because what the hell else are they supposed to do? They're not personally to blame for the fact that undercharging is such a problem. And if their only option is to bite the bullet and undercharge like everyone else, even if it means worsening that problem, I don't think it's right to say that they're in the wrong for that. I get encouraging them to charge more, and I get wanting to try to fix or at least lessen this problem, but blaming small artists for trying to make a living the only way they feel that they can isn't the answer. So I basically just said a lot of, there's no right or wrong way to price commissions, which is all well and good, but it doesn't really help any of you that are here for advice on pricing your commissions. And while I can't tell you what's best or what will work for you, I can at least give you some options and factors to consider when it comes to finding that answer for yourself. First of all, consider what's most important to you in terms of setting your prices. Low prices often mean more clients, but also, I don't want to say worse clients, but I kind of mean worse clients. Charging very little for your art attracts clients that are only willing to pay the minimum for what they want, which means they're a lot more likely to nickel and dime you, be less respectful, and value your work less. If that's not the kind of customer you want to put up with, that's something you need to consider when you're setting your prices. You should also keep in mind what kind of message your prices are sending. Exceptionally low prices send the message of lower quality and less experience, which will also lead to lower expectations for your work. Particularly high prices send the message of professionalism and high-end quality, which will lead to higher expectations. Neither is right or wrong, but where your prices fall on that spectrum should correlate to the expectations you want want your customers to have, which is basically to say that you need to try to objectively evaluate your work based on its quality and your experience, and then decide what you're comfortable with. When I was 12 and taking DeviantArt points commissions, I had this guy basically say, well, this aspect could be better and I'd prefer this thing to be this way, but for 400 points I got what I paid for, so it's fine. And as a 12-year-old whose art was mediocre at best, those were the exact expectations I wanted him to have based on my prices, because that was the best I objectively thought I could provide. I know how hard it is to see your art for what it is without self-doubt and insecurity making you biased, but it's something that gets easier with time, and pricing your work based on the standard of quality you believe you can reasonably provide, as well as what the client would expect you to provide based on your rates, is a helpful way to make sure that you're personally as comfortable as you can be with your own prices. Another important thing to consider is the amount of time and effort that each commission takes you. For example, I offer sketch commissions, line art commissions, and fully rendered commissions. In terms of the time each type takes me, sketch and line art commissions take me significantly less time than fully rendered commissions, so they're priced quite closely to each other, while fully rendered pieces have a bit of a price hike comparatively. Backgrounds also take me a while, so I include a significant additional charge for clients who want them. If something takes you a long time, charge more for it. You should also consider charging extra for rush jobs with tight deadlines that will require more of your time and prioritization. Conversely, if you're really fast at something else, charge less for it so that you can get more of those commissions and churn them out quickly based on that skill. For example, my chibi commissions are much cheaper than my normal commissions because they're simpler and I can get them done way faster. I've also known many artists who choose to charge less for commissions with subject matter that they